So, welcome everyone, and welcome to episode number 11 of YMCast. It's good to be with you today, as always. You will see I'm joined by a very special guest. Her name is Charlotte. We will get to Charlotte a little bit later, talking about our theme for this week. But as we always do, let's start in prayer. Heavenly Lord, it's great that we are able to meet and connect in this way during this strange, weird, bizarre time. May we and all your people know your love, your healing, and your passion. May it thrive through us this day and always. Amen.
Amen.
So, as you can see, I am joined by Charlotte. Charlotte, like me, is a Methodist Council rep from 3Gen. We are the boring people that like to kind of go and spend our lives in various meetings. But Charlotte does an awful lot more than just Methodist Council. So, Charlotte, would you like to explain to us a little bit about what you do and what our theme for YMCast is this week?
So, as well as being a rep, I work in a school at the moment. But I think why I'm here is because I have a particular passion for refugees and the subject of migration. And in 2016, I went and volunteered in Sicily at a refugee centre for young boys. And as this week is Refugee Week, Michael's asked me to come and talk a little bit about that.
Excellent. As you have mentioned, this week is Refugee Week. So what is Refugee Week? What happens in Refugee Week?
So Refugee Week has been going for, I'm not sure exactly how long, but a fair few years now. And it's a week where Refugee Day is on Saturday, the 20th of June this year. And that is, Refugee Week is the week leading up to that, which is a celebration of refugees and almost sort of sharing like art and literature, music from refugees to sort of celebrate all that refugees can bring to our communities.
Brilliant, thank you. I know I've seen on YouTube on the Methodist Young Adults page and around on kind of Methodist Facebook pages, there's been an awful lot of kind of prayers and different conversations all about Refugee Week and what it means to kind of be a refugee nowadays. You mentioned earlier about your work in Sicily. Could you explain a little bit more about what you were doing, what that was like?
So in the summer of 2016, so 4 years ago, that was around the times that the refugee crisis was really something that was catching the attention of our media, with 2015, 2016 kind of being the big sort of prime time for refugees to be crossing the Mediterranean and coming into Europe. So I volunteered in a centre run by an organisation called Mediterranean Hope, who are funded partly by the Italian Methodist Church, in a centre called Casa della Cultura, which is the House of Cultures in southern Sicily in a little town called Scicli. And the centre's been used for various things like over the past couple of years. So I think there's more families there at the moment. But when we were there, it was primarily boys who were unaccompanied minors from West Africa. And so most of them were between maybe 14 and 18 officially, but it can be quite hard to sort of tell what age people are. So there's like a bit of give and take, let's say. And so I was 19 at the time. So we were very similar sort of age to the boys that we were working with. And our job was really, we did various things, but was just to build relationships with the boys and to sort of be there and be a friendly face. And we played a lot of sort of Uno and Jenga and things like that, just as you do with young people. We also did bits of cooking, which they laughed at us quite a lot because my pasta skills weren't great. And yeah, we did a bit of maintenance. So one day we were sanding down crates to make a sofa. And we also taught English. So when we first arrived, there were some English teachers from America who knew what they were doing. And so they'd been teaching English, but they left maybe 2 weeks into our time there. And so then Lucy and I, who went out together, we took over teaching English lessons to the boys. And so, yeah, they were some of our roles. It was a lot of just sort of chipping in where we could. So anything from waking boys up in the morning and telling them they needed to come to English, to spraying water around the kitchen, having a laugh at dinner time. We just did bits of everything really.
Brilliant. And so how long were you out there for?
I want to say it was about 7 weeks, 7 or 8 weeks. So it was the whole of the summer. So we did a training week in Stoke-on-Trent for the first week that we were there, and then we went out for 6-7 weeks, and then we came to Cliff College at the very end for a sort of retreat, and we spoke to some people about sort of what we'd seen and things like that.
Brilliant. So why would you say you are passionate about refugees? What is it that kind of got you really passionate about this subject?
So before I went to Italy, I'll be honest, I didn't really know that much, and I kind of applied thinking, oh well, I've got a summer free, like I've just finished first year at uni, that finishes in June, July. I don't go back till middle of September, like I've got this summer. And I heard someone talking about, no, actually my mum heard about this sort of opportunity and came and told me and was like, you need to go and do this. And I was like, okay, cool. And like I didn't have necessarily like that burning passion then, but I knew that there was something there that was like, actually this is something that I could do. And going and applying, like at that point we were still being told that we would probably be going to Lampedusa to help people who were coming off the boats and landing on that first bit of Italian territory that you get to from Africa. And so that's sort of what I was psyched up for. Like that's what I knew was going to happen. But that changed to then be going to the centre, which, you know, we went not really knowing what we were going to see, what was going to happen. But when I got there and found the stories of the boys that we met and building relationships with them as people, and realising that actually there's quite a lot I've got in common with, you know, these people. And like, it was just bizarre that we could just see them as statistics and they could be treated so different to us, and then that was okay. And I don't think it hit me properly until we were coming home. So we had to get the plane back on, I think it was the 4th September, something like that. And we were flying back from Catania to Manchester. And we were running a bit late for the plane and we had to sort of jump some queues and whatever to get there. But when we got on the plane, I was able just to wave my passport and they just let me straight on, sat in the front row of this EasyJet plane with all the legroom, wonderful. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this isn't fair. I've got this little red book, and because I've got this book, I'm allowed to get on this plane, go home, no one's going to stop me, no one's going to ask any questions. Why should I be allowed to do that? Like, it was just the whole flight, I'm looking down at the sea, I'm thinking, why should I not be in a boat? Why should I not be, you know, risking my life? Why should I not be paying people smugglers for me to be able to make this journey? Why is it so easy for me just because of where I was born? And I think finding something so in common with, you know, these young boys who are just happen to be born somewhere different, and to sort of end up with that whole different set of circumstances just because of that. I think like the injustice of it all really was what has made me so passionate about wanting change.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's like I know you kind of see on the news, you kind of see all these kind of images of migrants in a boat or so. So it's just, I imagine it's a lot more kind of real seeing it in person as such.
No, I guess you could say I was fortunate in a way that I didn't see the boats and like we didn't sort of encounter that part of things, which is something that, I don't know. On one hand, I think it's a really important thing to see because, you know, that is a massive part of the story. But on the other hand, we built those relationships with the people that have been there. And so, like, I don't know, there's sort of two sides, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how is it that we in kind of in Britain at the moment, how is it that we can help out? What is it that we can do about this situation?
So Refugee Week is really exciting this year, I think. So every year there's a different theme, and this year the theme is imagine. And so they're encouraging people to imagine what it would be like to be a refugee, and to imagine a world where the issue of being a refugee isn't an issue. And like, I think that's really interesting for us to be able to sort of put ourselves in those shoes. And although we will never fully understand like what it's like to have to make those decisions, we can have some sort of an understanding and, you know, really sort of imagine and think about how we would feel. But yeah, a lot of what happens in the UK is sort of run through charities. So supporting those charities and finding charities sort of local to where we are is, yeah, a good way to get involved and to find where people like refugees are in your area. So with the Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme, which was the scheme that was put in place in, I want to say, I don't know, it was put in place in 2010 somewhere, when the Syrian 2015 it was put in place in 2015, and that's allowed people to come and settle in parts of the UK from Syria, so that they've not had to make those journeys, or when they have made those journeys, they're given the right to stay. And I think the government target was something like 20,000 by 2020. So there will be people in close to where you are, whether you know it or not. And so I think sort of getting alongside those people is, you know, a really good thing to do if you're able to do that.
Brilliant, thank you. And you talked a little bit about how it was you kind of applied for this opportunity. Do you know the name of that scheme, particularly for some of us younger people who might be really passionate about being able to potentially get over there?
So there wasn't necessarily a scheme in place. It was through Swanbank Church that I was able to go, and there was some sort of connection there that someone had been able to, you know, get the money together to send some young people over. But the charity organisation, rather, Mediterranean Hope, has projects around. So they've got one in Lampedusa, which is where the boats land fairly regularly to sort of help those people that are landing onto the island. Then they've got Casa della Cultura in Sheakley, which, you know, houses people before they make their next steps into where they're going to settle. And there's also Humanitarian Corridors in Rome, which helps people to come out of some of the most dangerous places, for example at the time and still now Syria, to make those journeys without risking their lives. But I know there's other sort of opportunities available. If a quick Google should like find things like every year there's a group that go over to Calais to sort of help in the camp. So there are things available.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very, very much for that. And is there kind of anything else that you would just like to say to us as us over here in Gatton Methodist Church?
I think the other thing that I should have said before when you asked how we can help is partly on a political level. So a lot of the rules around sort of refugees, asylum seekers, migrants are obviously made by the government and the Home Office. And I think we need to be really aware of what they are doing. So last week they increased the amount of money that you would get as an asylum seeker, and that increase was celebrated, and it was almost, oh, look at us, we've made this increase. But actually, if you look at what the increase is, it's 26p a day. And it's being referred to as an insult rather than an increase. And as well as that, like, there's policy here, there and everywhere that is to do with refugees and migrants that people won't necessarily agree with. So I think being able to challenge people on a political level about sort of those decisions is really important. So something I'm doing during Refugee Week is I'm doing some embroidery of one of these pictures that you do see of a guy getting off the boat holding his 2 kids, and just sort of going to write above it for Refugee Week, like, imagine this was your only choice. And although, you know, that is just one voice, but that has the potential to do change, to bring about change. So I think I'd encourage anyone to sort of, you know, challenge the injustices that they see around it.
But yeah, I don't suppose we can see that embroidery by any chance.
You can, hold on. So it's not got very far, but the orange which you see here is the life jacket, and the belt of the life jacket, and then it's really hard to see, but the head's up here.
Brilliant.
And it's holding these 2 kids.
Thank you. I don't suppose, can you send us a photo of that so we can kind of put it up online afterwards when you...
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Charlotte, for coming on YMCast today. It's brilliant to be able to hear your story, to hear about how we can get involved and how we can kind of play our part of challenging that injustice. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me.